Hello and welcome to Market Madness, the podcast from Give Me Sport, where every day is like deadline day. With myself, Olivia Bazaglo, and joining me is Give Me Sport senior football correspondent Ben Jacobs. So there he is, pops up at just the right time. A summer of rumours, conjecture, and late transfer twists. It all comes down to this. Just 4 days left in the transfer window. Now we'll bring you the latest from across the Premier League, Europe, and Scotland. Speaking of which, we're joined by journalist Anthony Joseph from Sky Sports News to dissect just what is going wrong at Rangers and will Champions League exits impact the spending power of both old firm clubs. They, of course, meet this weekend, don't they? What a game that's going to be. Plus, a man who knows a thing or two about deadline day moves. We've got former Burnley, QPR and West Brom striker Charlie Austin has been involved in some multi-million pound transfers throughout his career. He's going to be joining us as well. Ben, how are you?
Everything is good. Everything is busy. It's going to be the craziest deadline day in living memory. I stand by that prediction. We'll never have a September the 1st or build up like this one in many, many years to come.
Oh gosh, I'm like nervous as to how it's going to be. I mean, I think we are going to find a resolution to Alexander Isak. Do you think that will go down to deadline day, or do you think Liverpool get that done before?
Yeah, I think that could be a deadline day story, and what a story, regardless of how it plays out. It's dominated the whole summer, so why resolve it and give us all a few extra nights sleep? I think September the 1st, Liverpool obviously waiting for encouragement, Newcastle looking for potential replacements. And the most interesting thing for me will be, if a stale happens, are Liverpool going to get their price in and around 120 million, or is Newcastle's price of 150 million being legitimate and genuine and attainable all window? And that will tell us a lot about how both clubs have worked, because if it's closer to 120, Liverpool have backed off, they've waited for encouragement, they've got the deal on their terms. If it's 150, people will obviously say, why did they bid 110, knowing they'd have to go up by 40 million? And that's kind of where we stand at the moment. It's a fascinating saga. It's a complicated one. It's political. And I do think that it might go right down to the wire.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, Ben. I'm quite looking forward to it all being over, to be perfectly honest. I feel like I've spent, like, every day I've been on Sky just talking about Alexander Isak for, like, the same things. I'm just curious as to what happens to Hugo Ekitike. Is he pushed out wide? Surely there's no other alternative apart from pushing him out wide, because you can't spend 150 million or whatever they're going to spend on Alexander Isak and not start him.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, 4-4-2 is one option, but Hugo Ekitike can play over on that left-hand side too. And I think with Darwin Núñez departing, Liverpool want to establish number 9. So there's an element maybe of rotation, long old season and all of that. But they're two box office players. If Isak joins, they're two players well in excess of 100 million. And as you say, they both expect to start. So my job's to report on the transfers. Arne Slot's job is that headache, and therefore I'll pass the buck to him. But I think Ekitike out wide with Isak leading the line, if the formation stays the same. But I wouldn't rule out 4-4-2 being trialled as well.
Oh, interesting. I mean, what a window that would be if Liverpool do get Alexander Isak. Is it over for the rest of us? Probably. Right. Do leave your questions. Get your questions in. We'll try our best to answer them during the show. We're currently live on Facebook, YouTube and X. And of course, if you're listening back in the future, then make sure you're following at GiveMeSport so you can see when the live shows are taking place. For more information on any of the stories discussed today, you can head over to GiveMeSport's website. Make sure you're following us across the socials as well. And now, before all of that, if you listen to Market Madness, you know that the first thing we always do on this show is we give Ben a question, and he has the length of the show to find out the answer. And I'm not quite sure I like today's question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, Ben. And that is, will Tottenham beat Chelsea in the race for Xavi Simons?
What do you think? I mean, I'll answer at the end, but you can answer at the beginning.
Yeah, I'll answer at the beginning. I think yes, because I think it feels like Chelsea are prioritising Alejandro Garnacho. That feels like that one's moving pace at a quicker rate than Xavi Simons. And I think the left wing is probably more... I don't know if Xavi Simons plays off the left, really. I personally thought he was a number 10. Obviously, Cole Palmer plays that position. I know we definitely do need a left winger. Jamie Gittins, I know Neto can play there, but Jamie Gittins is currently our only real choice there. And he hasn't necessarily, he's been okay. Obviously didn't start the last game, opted for, Esteval and Neto. So yeah, I think the answer to that question is yes. I hope it's wrong. I hope it's no. but I think it's yes. But of course, if you want to hear the real answer, not my answer, the real answer to that question, make sure you stick around until the end of the show. Right, let's get into it then. This is Market Madness from Give Me Sport. First of all, Ben, I feel like we need to start by just having a little chat about what on earth happened in the Carabao Cup last night. Because I was watching it, and I mean, the penalty shootout. I mean, we have been treated to some absolutely horrific penalty shootouts recently, by the way. However, that one yesterday was unbelievable, and fair play to the Grimsby lot for just keeping their heads and keeping their cool and just knocking in those penalties for fun. It was brilliant.
Yeah, I think a lot of the headlines will be about Manchester United, but rightly we should start with Grimsby, who were superb. And although some will say the second goal might have been disallowed under VAR, the third goal that they scored looked like it was an intentional back pass by Harry Maguire, or at least a movement playing the ball. So Grimsby would have argued 3-0, game over. Instead, battling back, Manchester United, all credit to them in the last 20 minutes of the game. But Onana, who we see there, made an error. So it's not just about going out, it's about more question marks over the number one goalkeeper and even Ruben Amorim as well. But Grimsby's superb, which is why we should start there. Great to see these kind of upsets. Ridiculous, dramatic penalty shootout. Both the goalkeepers scored, and Bumo there hit the bar. That cost Manchester United, but he did score a penalty in the shootout prior to that as well. And then a bit of breaking news that I can bring you. I know we normally play the stab, but let me just give you this breaking news now because it relates to Manchester United. Plenty of people asking me about Ruben Amorim, and my understanding is that he's under no immediate threat. He retains board backing, so suggestions that he could go, walk, resign at this stage, all very premature. Of course, at any club like Manchester United, having had a big summer, if you get to that festive period and results have not improved, every manager, I think, at most big clubs will be under discussion or threat. But right now, in the aftermath of Grimsby and quite a drab draw at Fulham as well, a game that Manchester United should have won, there have been suggestions that Amorim might resign or that the Manchester United board may be getting a little bit anxious. But at the moment, my feeling, speaking to sources in the last 24 hours, is that Ruben Amorim is safe as it stands.
I mean, I thought it was interesting when he got out his little tactics board at half time. He's turned into a walking meme, hasn't he, Ruben Amorim? And I thought it was weird that he didn't watch the penalty shootout.
But yeah, some managers are just superstitious.
I know, maybe that is superstitious, because I was like, surely, like, you want your manager there, and I don't know. I mean, obviously everyone to their own, and apparently he does that in the Premier League as well. But I don't know. I thought it was a little bit weird, and I also thought was weird was that Šeško not willing to take a penalty before all the outfield players took a penalty.
Yeah, that was strange, wasn't it? I mean, I know he's being reintegrated and so on, but penalty is a penalty. You don't need any training. You don't need any tactics. You step up. You do what you've done at every single club, past, present, future. Yeah. So to be 10th in the pecking order, it suggests, maybe it's only my personal view, that the player decided he didn't want to take one because he is a penalty taker. He's very good. He scored his penalty as well. So to be 10th in the pecking order, big surprise.
Yeah, it was. God, nearly choked then. Yeah, it was a big surprise. Not that much of a surprise, but it was a big surprise that Šeško did step up 10th. But I think we have to move on, Ben, because have we got some breaking news?
Yeah, breaking news. So we've just brought you the Ruben Amorim being safe for now at Manchester United. Now a little bit of breaking news around Chelsea. And my understanding is that Chelsea are really close today to an agreement for Alejandro Garnacho after positive talks both this morning and last night. And the clubs are expected to agree a fee below Manchester United's original £50 million asking price, closer, in fact, to 40 million. And that, I'm told, will include add-ons as well. Now, Garnacho has already agreed terms with Chelsea. He's been waiting for the move for much of the summer. And what should unlock this from close to formal is the fact that Chelsea have agreed a fee with Milan to sell Christopher Nkunku for 42 million euros. I'm told that that's 37 million euros fixed, 5 million in add-ons, slight reduction on Chelsea's own 50 million euros asking price a little bit earlier in the window, and when Bayern came calling. And now they've got one out, even though Garnacho and Kunku are not like for like, and some will think it means Siemens in. I'm told Chelsea want to do Garnacho first. They want to strengthen on that left side. It's more of a priority. And as a consequence, and Kunku out, Garnacho in. And the feeling is that this is not a deal that is going to rumble on all the way through until deadline day. It could be done at least between the clubs, if not totally formalized in the next 24 or 48 hours. And then just another small bit of Chelsea news as well, and kind of Manchester United as well. Keep an eye on Jadon Sancho and Tyreek George for Roma. So my understanding here as of this lunchtime is Roma's priority is Jadon Sancho. No problem agreeing a fee with Manchester United because the price is down as low as £17 million, but Sancho's wage remains an issue. If they can't in the next 48 hours get an agreement with Sancho, Roma will decide to proceed with Tyreek George somewhere around the 25 million to 30 million euros mark. And George, of course, has much lower terms. So no problem on the player side, but still a club-to-club agreement needed with Chelsea. So Sancho's the first choice, but George is maybe a little bit more feasible. So maybe another outgoing about to happen from Stamford Bridge. Tyreek George to Roma and still Jadon Sancho to Roma. One of those two expected to happen before the window shuts.
Oh, don't know how I feel about all of that. But anyway, coming up in just a few minutes' time, our Rangers are ready to cut ties with Russell Martin after just 10 matches. They lost 9-1 on aggregate to Club Brugge in their Champions League qualifier, got knocked out. Obviously, he's come out, he's been just saying a lot of things, Russell Martin. It's going to be interesting what happens, especially with the old firm coming up. Next, though, we are joined by a player whose transfer moves have totaled well over £10 million throughout his career. A player who rose from non-league football to the Premier League, where he scored 34 goals in 111 top-flight matches for Burnley, QPR and West Brom. Charlie Austin joins us on the show. Charlie, how are you?
Oh, good. Thank you, guys. Yourself?
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Great to see you.
I just would like to say I actually was on before Charlie on Sky Sports News today, and he spent the whole 2 hours hammering Manchester United and Ruben Amorim. Charlie, did you enjoy yourself? Because it looked like you did.
Yeah, but I think rightly so, Liv. I think rightly so. As everybody that doesn't support Manchester United, I think it was rightly so. It was all on show last night, and we all see the fact that they've been struggling a lot. And look, I think it showed that the players are not playing for the manager, and the manager don't trust the players. It's as simple as that. And Grimsby deserved to win it in 90 minutes. And we're going about the manager being in the dugout and not really watching the penalties. But I just felt like that might be a superstition. That's fine. But after last night's performance, I felt like he should have been on the touchline, puffing his chest out alongside his players. And for me, it just looked like an embarrassment. But he was embarrassed for the players. And I think in the end of it, collectively, it was the players were embarrassed for the manager as well.
Charlie, obviously we're going to get on to like deadline day and just like transfer moves and stuff. But on Manchester United, I was just talking to Ben about this. As a striker, and I suppose as you've just joined a new club, are we thinking too much into Benjamin Šeško being?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not, Liv, because I was thinking the exact same last night. No, I think we're watching it and think, right, okay, I get Fernandez, I get Matheus Cunha, I get Brian Mbeumo. Then I'm thinking, right, surely Šeško's going to come in. No, not in the 5, maybe 6, 10th. I get his penalty record, right? But we're talking about and easing himself in and building. We are talking about a £74 million striker who's taking number 10 penalty away to Grimsby. He slotted it in, coolly as you like, right? What majority of football people expect him to do? But 10th penalty, surely. I'm not sure. It was just very, very strange one. And again, I don't know who made that decision, because the manager obviously sat down in the dugout, didn't speak to the players. It was a strange one the whole night. And I think for as bad as Manchester United was on the night, you can't take nothing away from Grimsby Town. They was brilliant.
Yeah, they were unbelievable. And like you say, like the best team on the night absolutely won. Also on Sky, you called for Sean Dyche to manage.
but listen for what it was, the structure. Yeah, look, this is the reaction, right?
No, I like it. To be honest, I like it, Charlie. I like it.
It wasn't like, Sean Dyche, everyone's going to jump all over it, right? It was Sean Dyche would come in and it would be structured, and it would be a direction, a play of what Manchester are trying to do. Because at the moment, The manager's saying, "I'll play 3-4-3," but the players can't play the 3-4-3. And he looks like he's not going to change anything. The structure on the pitch, off the pitch, is all over the place.
Yeah.
So I don't understand what's going on. Like Manchester United, after Sunday's result at Fulham, we're all talking about Bruno Fernandes blaming the referee for getting away. He's sulking. Fans are saying we should have sold him for the 100 million. But now, all of a sudden, we're talking about the manager, and he don't fit the system. Well, you can't turn down 100 million for a player and him not want to go, and then not build the team around him and have the right system for him and Manchester United.
Yeah. I completely agree. And I think most people would agree with you in that sense as well. Did you ever think that, your old club Burnley go to Old Trafford this weekend?
It's a 6-pointer, Liv. It's so, that's how mate, with 3 games. It's the third game. Because listen, no, again, but imagine, right? Let's just say, for argument's sake, the 2 promoted clubs have come up and not won a game, right? And they're playing against each other early on. That's exact. Is it too early to say it's a 6-pointer? Now, I know it's a tongue-in-cheek thing, but listen, if they don't win, then they go international break. Then they got Man City when they come back.
That's tough.
Do you know what I mean?
I feel like United, they're so capable of just like a one-off mad result, but at the moment, it just feels like.
Well, it doesn't stick. They can't. No, the one-off mad result. I'm totally with you. Like they've been struggling. They won at the Etihad last twice, right? But now it's to back it up and have continuously win games and put a run of games together. We're talking about wins. They don't even back up a run of performances together. We can't say, oh my God, 3-4 games where they've been brilliant, because they haven't. And I know we're always talking about Manchester United because they're a massive, massive football club, right? On the pitch, off the pitch, globally, the brand, everything.
Yeah.
And that's when they get it right, everybody talks about them. And when they get it wrong, which they have done over for the last 10, 12 years, everybody talks about them. Man United make the news. That's why we talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Burnley, though, your former club as well, who obviously have strengthened over the summer. They've made a fair few moves. They've spent big. Burnley and Sunderland have both invested this window, and even Leeds as well. Amanda Broja, Leslie Okwuchukwu, to name 2, both coming in from Chelsea. What have you made of their business, and have they got enough to stay in the Premier League?
Time will tell if they've got enough. But the experience they brought in, they lost James Trafford, which would have been disappointing for Burnley. It was pivotal to them last year. But Dubravka's come in, experienced goalkeeper, Premier League, perfect replacement in the end when you really think about it. They signed Kyle Walker, which is massive. I don't think people are making a bigger deal out of it than actually what it is to Burnley Football Club, right? England international, how many caps he's got, how many trophies he's won, and the experience he's going to bring is phenomenal. You've got Jaden Anthony there, he's 25, he's been there on loan, now he's the signing, come from Bournemouth, he played well at the weekend, now it's up to him to really take it on. But the standout one for me is what you said, is Amanda Broja. For me, if he gets going and shows the form that he did at Chelsea before he got injured, little bits he did at Everton, I really think he could be the one that could really help Burnley stay up in the Premier League this year.
And what we're going to see is this crazy flurry of movement heading towards deadline day, probably more so than in many previous years. As a player, you've been through it yourself. I think for several different windows, it was Charlie Austin is going to go somewhere.
I'll tell you what, I wish we could turn back the clocks. Charlie Austin playing up front. I scored 11, I think, before Christmas one year. I'd be making a fortune now if I moved then. Do you know what I mean? I'd be going 50, 60 million. There'd be a few panic buys going.
That's what you need.
But it's a domino. It's a full domino effect, right? And you could be number 1 in the domino, or you could be 5 in the domino, right? But it only takes that one move, and then all of a sudden everything moves along, and then you just all of a sudden you can see it almost with Alexander Isak at Newcastle. There's strikers waiting, and being told if he goes, you 2 are the next in. You're the ones the next in, and that'll be happening all over the place.
Yeah, and when you're sort of in that position, particularly on deadline day, talk me through the thinking, because you had a few where you didn't move. Like 2015, you're at QPR, you were linked with several clubs. I think Crystal Palace was one. When you were at Southampton, there was some suggestion you might get a loan, but it never happened with Cardiff. But then in 2019, you did make that 4 million move from Southampton to West Brom right at the last minute. What goes through your mind? Tell me the sort of story.
Stress.
From the player perspective.
Stress. But you know what? Honestly, it does depend a lot on how you are treated at the football club. I know it works both ways, but what your situation is at the football club. Like if you are moved away from the first team, like I was at Southampton training on with the under 23s, etc., it becomes almost in the end the stubbornness gives away, and then you almost got to come to a meeting point with the club, and then you move on. But you are waiting around, and then ultimately, logistically as well. Like if you've got a family, a wife, kids, and then you've got to move the other end of the country. Like this is all the thought process that no one actually thinks about. And then you've got all that stress at home. You've got social media now. You go into the change room and lads are asking you what's going on. The manager's bringing you in and try and either convince you to stay or try and force you out and ask you why you're not going. So there's all these things that are going on through your head as well. Your phone don't stop. You're speaking to your agent constantly. Look, if you're getting a positive move, and 9 times out of 10 when you're getting the move, it's what the player wants in the end, it's okay. It's when you get in them positions where you're at like a little standoff. What we're seeing now with Newcastle, I know we're talking about 150 million, right? But if they could have it their way, it would have played out completely different. And we talk about Eze, where how he got his move to Arsenal. Well, everyone said he was superb the way he conducted himself, and no one could say a bad word about him.
Charlie, you mentioned Isak there. Do you think this one could go down to deadline day? And how will he be feeling knowing we're approaching only like 4 days to go until the deadline? Will he be calm, do you think?
I hope so, Liv, because I'm working deadline day, so I hope it goes all the way. Do you know what? Will he be calm? Yeah, in bits, I'd say, and then other bits he'd be stressed. But he hasn't gone away from what he said. I thought he might have folded and got back in some way, but he's been strong. He's adamant someone's given him like their word last year that he could leave, and that he has stuck to, whether that's true or not, right? He has stuck to that. He has stuck to his guns. I understand he didn't go to Asia on their tour, right? That is one thing. And you think, oh, maybe this might play out when he comes back. But the fact it's carried on the whole way through the transfer window is not ideal. And ultimately, you look at the football club as well, and you think of Liverpool, how well they played against Liverpool Monday night, and you think, if they did have an Isak up top, the game would have been out of sight for Newcastle in the first half.
Yeah.
Did you ever put yourself in that situation where you had to go to a manager or a club at any point during a window and say, I want out? And who did you go to? Was it manager? Was it you and manager, agent and manager? Or do you even go above and speak to ownership?
Not ownership. You either speak to like a director of football. Director of football at Southampton was the other way. They wanted me out. They wanted me out in the end. But like a group of us, like 5 or 6 of us, me, Mario Lamina, Geordie Classics, and we was training on our own. And they wanted us out. And that's how they come to us in the end. And that's how we got the agreement at the end. At the first time, this when I was like immature football at Swindon, I didn't really understand. I put a transfer request in, a written transfer request that my wife wrote it, and I give it into Swindon that I wanted out, and then like 3 days later I got my move anyway. But it certainly happens. These conversations happen, and these transfer requests do happen also. But one thing I will say from a player's point of view, it's not always the player's fault. Sometimes, like I say, when the players want to move, it's hard. But when the clubs want you out, they have no problem of shipping you out.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with Isak, especially because the Wolves chairman, I think, has told Strand Larsen that they're not going to now accept any bid for him because it's too late, and that was obviously like Newcastle's. I mean, they said it was a replacement.
But then, Liv, I'm with you, and there's your domino, right? So Newcastle get 150. The clubs know that they've got the money. What happens if he said, the Wolves chairman said, I'm not letting Strand Larsen. Okay, here's 75 million.
Yeah.
Or they bid, say 70 million. Wolves go back saying, you give me 75 million for Strand Larsen, then because they know they've got the money. Then the chairman's got it right on his toes. He gets 75 big ones for Strand Larsen. With all due respect, good centre forward, but not 75 million.
Yeah, I agree. But I also think Strand Larsen could keep Wolves up. And I think if he goes, they might go down. So I think that's probably the...
But I think like what a lot of people are not thinking about also is Newcastle's recruitment. If this is actually going on in the background and they are thinking, oh, this could happen, this might... Obviously, they're thinking it's never going to happen. Alexander Isak would buckle at a time. But surely you would think they might have had a few options in place.
Yeah.
Maybe this is their options. I don't know. But do you know what I mean? Maybe further afield.
Yeah, definitely. Charlie, you have been great. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure.
Super, guys. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Charlie.
Take care. Cheers, guys.
That was Charlie Austin there. Brilliant. And Ben, I think it's time for another bit of breaking news, isn't it?
Two bits of Arsenal news. The first to tell you that Kai Havertz will need surgery on a knee injury, but lengthy absence on the sidelines is not expected. This was a story first broken by David Ornstein at The Athletic and confirmed by Arsenal sources. You might have seen me stand up about 5 minutes ago
We did catch that.
mid-podcast because I was answering a call to make sure I can bring you this news and another bit of news as well. So Havertz is not going to need anything major. We knew he was out. It kind of prompted, although it was not the deciding factor, only in the move for Eberechi Eze. But I think as soon as it was clear he was going to be on the sidelines for at least a period of time, Arsenal crystallised their interest in Eberechi Eze and subsequently signed him. They're trying to get one more through the door in Piero Hincapié. And my understanding is that Arsenal have set an internal deadline, so not something that they've given to Leverkusen directly, but Friday. In other words, they're hoping for an agreement between now and end of business tomorrow. And there was a meeting this morning and progress has been made. The feeling is that it will be a loan with an obligation, and Arsenal are still trying for under Hincapié's 60 million euros release clause and closer if they can to 50 million euros. Loan with obligations, the preferred formula, as opposed to an outright purchase. It can still help both clubs as far as putting that money on their books, and things are moving and things are starting to speed up now on the club-to-club side. Terms with Hincapié, not a problem. Then concurrent to this, you have Jakub Kiwior, who has some late interest from Milan, but a deal with Porto is pretty much in place as well. I think Arsenal's perspective is if Milan move, they'll match the Porto deal, which is a loan with an obligation of 26 million euros. And then the player will decide if that scenario materializes which club he wants. But at the moment, it's pretty much done with Porto. But Kiwior's not allowed to fly until Hincapié is agreed in principle. So Arsenal are effectively delaying that deal, which is virtually done with Porto, to make sure that Hincapié has landed, and only then will they sanction a Jakub Kiwior exit. Then you've got Reece Nelson and Crystal Palace. That could develop between now and deadline day. And an Alexander Zinchenko exit is still possible as well. But there was a positive meeting this morning between Arsenal and Bayer Leverkusen, and the clubs are now closer to an agreement in principle as Hincapié waits to see whether that move comes off.
Interesting that is from Arsenal. I mean, how many defenders do they want? How many defenders do they want? Anyway,
think about it though, like Kiwior, left-sided defender, Hincapié can play centre-back, left-back. If Zinchenko goes as well, they lose 2, they add 1. And then if you count Mosquera, they've brought in 2 and they've lost 2.
Yeah, it feels like we've got a million defenders. But anyway, right, let's turn our attention to Scotland now, because what an awful week it was for Celtic and Rangers. Both of them knocked out of the Champions League in the playoff stage. And already the heat is very much on Rangers boss Russell Martin, who hasn't been in charge for very long. Earlier, GiveMeSport Simon Watts caught up with a journalist from Sky Sports News and Scottish football expert Anthony Joseph.
Well, Anthony, thank you for joining us. I know it's a really, really busy time for everybody at Sky Sports News right now. We'll get on to transfers in a minute, but it was a bad night for Rangers. It's been a bad week for both Rangers and Celtic, eliminated in the Champions League. Is it fair to say, or are we over dramatising it, that Russell Martin could be staring into the abyss just 10 games into his spell as manager?
Well, it's hard to say that, and hard to really know where Rangers are at this stage of the sort of cycle. For the last 15 years, they've sort of been in this endless cycle of not winning major trophies, sacking managers, and within the last 14 years, they've only won one title. So it's hard to say where they are. They're in a new project. They've got the 49ers in. They are probably looking for a bit of stability, but I guess if you keep losing games and you can't win your Scottish Premiership matches, you are going to be under pressure. I think the fairest thing to say is he is under intense pressure. I don't think I've ever seen by the 27th of August banners asking for the manager to be gone. outside Ibrox like there were just the other night after the Bruges defeat. So it's not even like the fans are split. I think the fans didn't want Russell Martin to start with. He had to hit the ground running, and he hasn't done. But on reflection, I think objectively, you've got to think, where are Rangers wanting to go? What do they want to do? Do they want to continue this cycle of just sacking managers and starting again and rebuilding and then putting more money into that? Or do you stick with a manager, which I guess you could argue has had the most success? Gerrard had, 3 years in charge, 2 years of not winning the Scottish Premiership, and then won it in his third season. I don't think another Rangers manager is going to get that sort of time, but there needs to be signs of progress. And at the moment, we're not seeing it. And Russell Martin is under intense pressure going into Sunday's derby match.
I guess if they're going to stick with a manager, you either stick or twist, don't you? Because with Russell Martin, he's got a specific style of play. Rangers knew that when they brought him into the football club. But you need to have the players to carry out that style of football, which, despite Southampton's poor season last year, did get them into the Premier League in the first place. So I guess that leads us on to transfers and the transfer market. I mean, he still needs to build a squad with his identity. But does this Champions League exit hamper what he can do in the market?
I think it does and it doesn't. I don't necessarily think Rangers as a club were planning with a Champions League budget. They knew that the enormous task of it, and you could argue that their qualifying rounds are harder, more difficult than what Celtic would have to go through. Celtic had to play the champions of other countries, and they're usually smaller footballing nations. But as you see, they couldn't negotiate that. So whereas Rangers could have played like Benfica, Fenerbahce, and they played Club Brugge, who had an excellent Champions League season last year. So I don't think Rangers were actually budgeting for a Champions League campaign. What they were budgeting for was the Europa League. They obviously knew that was guaranteed after making it through one of the rounds. So I reckon they're going to have a busy time, because they've been wanting to move on players like Egeman, Dessers. They've wanted to be getting rid, not get rid of, but those kind of players are wanting to move on. And Rangers and Russell Martin have said he wants players who are committed to the cause. So it looks like Egeman is going to be getting his wish. Obviously, it was very controversial when he refused to come on against St Mirren and claimed he had an injury. Our understanding was that Rangers did the medical checks the next day and couldn't find any injury. So he didn't get to train that day, and Lille have triggered his £10.4 million release clause. At the time of us speaking, he is undergoing his medical at Lille right now. So that one should go through. So that gives Rangers a bit of money, a bit of cash. £10.4 million is an excellent, I know it was his release clause, but excellent money made, excellent profit on Egeman. So it allows them to perhaps move to a permanent deal for Bojan Miovski at Girona, who we understand he's quite close to agreeing terms with Rangers. So if they can agree those terms, then Rangers can negotiate a deal with Girona, which we understand might be in the region of 4 million euros, but we'll see how those negotiations go. But yes, Rangers need to improve their attacking options. I wonder if a club is actually going to come in with a bid for Cyril Dessers. If that is the case, then Rangers will probably need to go on the market to find another striker, because they can't be in a position where, against St Mirren last Sunday, they played no strikers. Ashgard, who's an attacking midfielder, was playing up front, and Rangers can't afford to do that.
Celtic domestically in a better position, but they suffered the same fate in midweek. Couldn't score over 2 legs in their playoff match in Kazakhstan event against Kairat Almaty. For Brendan Rodgers, it feels, watching him in news conferences recently, he's been talking a little bit like a manager who felt that result might have been coming. Is it fair to say he's not been particularly happy with the activity that's happened at Celtic this summer, transfer-wise?
Yeah, well, you could, going over the last 12 years, you could swap those quotes from Brendan Rodgers and put them to Ange Postecoglou, to Neil Lennon, to Ronnie Deila, to Brendan Rodgers in his first time. Celtic have had 3 automatic entries into the Champions League for the last 3 years. They've had the luxury of that, and they've been able to budget for that. Whereas history shows when they have to have a qualifier, the board generally, the club generally wait to see if they are going to make it to the Champions League before they spend big or push out on transfers. So much to the detriment of the footballing aspect of it, because Celtic, out of those 9 years where they've had to qualify in the last 12, they've failed to qualify on 7 occasions. And I think that shows this isn't, yes, the current Celtic squad should have had enough to beat Kairat Almaty and certainly score a goal over 210 minutes of football. But I think the sort of feeling and the sort of evidence that suggests is that they haven't spent to prepare for these qualifiers, and they have gone out on 7 occasions out of the 9 qualifiers they've had in the last 12 years, and that's under 4 managers. I think that shows a systemic issue, and it's not to massive clubs. It's to Maribor, to AK Athens. Yes, okay, they're probably a bit better, but there's other ones, Cluj, Ferencvaros. They've gone out to these sort of clubs that you'd expect Celtic to be beating home and away.
It hasn't prevented them from being linked with a whole host of names, often the case at this time of year, obviously. But what's your latest on potential incomings and outgoings at Celtic? Could it be a busy final few days of the window?
It's going to be a very busy final few days of the window. I mean, at the time of speaking, Celtic are trying to get a left back, 2 wingers, and a striker. So it's going to be very busy. I think they've got their left back sorted. Marcelo Saracchi is coming in from Boca Juniors on loan. He's undergoing his medical, and that should be completed fairly soon. Mikalanj Balikwisha from Royal Antwerp. The clubs have agreed a £5 million deal. He's completed his medical as well and should be tying up on a 4-year contract. So that should be also announced very soon, perhaps even before this goes out. But in terms of, so that's left back and 1 winger position sorted. So in terms of another winger, they are looking at Sebastian Tunecki at Hammarby. However, their first bid of £2.6 million has been rejected by the Swedish club. They are looking for around £5 million. But my understanding is Toulouse have also come in, so perhaps that could even drive the price up. So it's going to be very busy, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do in terms of striker targets, or do they just bring in a couple of wingers who can, and maybe someone who can play up front, and they push Dyson Maida as the number 9, as they did for the second half of last season. But it is worrying. Celtic fans are worried that they haven't replaced Kyogo, who went to Rennes for £10 million in January. They haven't replaced him. They've got Jota out injured till January, and they also sold Nicholas Kuhn. And they're also sitting on £75 million of Champions League money last season. So Celtic fans are rightfully, and I guess even Brendan Rodgers has suggested it, thinking, why are they not paying the asking prices for some of these targets? Yes, they might not value them at those prices, but Celtic have the money to spend £5 million on a player who is an up-and-coming player to develop. They don't need to always spend 2 million or 1 million on these players.
And that leads me on to my final question. And I know this is a player that seems to crop up every few weeks or so because he's still available for nothing and he has the link with Brendan Rodgers. But I know the fact that you've not mentioned him yet as a possibility, Jamie Vardy, is that one that just won't go away until he signs for somebody else? Or could he be an option further down the list if Celtic do decide not to spend any money? Because he's obviously still a free agent at the minute.
Yeah, so it won't go away because he hasn't signed for anyone, and there is that link with Rodgers. And history shows just in the last season that Rodgers has had to use his contacts to get players in. Celtic didn't get their first 2 goalkeeping targets very early on last summer, and after the Euros, Rodgers called up Kasper Schmeichel, and he came. So, and then Celtic let Alex Bailly go in January, let Barcelona recall him for a loan, and he went to Como. Celtic were hoping they could get a permanent deal for Kieran Tierney after agreeing a loan deal for Kieran Tierney after agreeing a pre-contract with him with Arsenal. So that didn't materialise. So on deadline day, Rodgers used his contacts and got Jeffrey Schlupp. So it has been used in the past. Our understanding is there's been no contact between Celtic and Jamie Vardy. I know there's suggestions in other newspapers and reports that Vardy would be interested in a move to Celtic. I mean, why not? It's a very attractive option, and to play European football, be at a massive club, it's something I'm sure he'd relish. But wages might be a sticking point. Celtic very rarely go over the £40,000 a week mark, so that might be an issue there. And who knows, the longer Jamie Vardy is going without a club and the longer Celtic are without a striker, you never know. Brendan Rodgers might have to delve into his contacts, and Jamie Vardy is definitely one of them. But as things stand, we don't understand he's the player that Celtic are going for.
That was a very, very, very interesting chat there. I mean, today, obviously, it's come out that, Russell Martin has the backing of the Rangers hierarchy. What happens if they get absolutely battered in the Old Firm on Sunday, Ben?
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because we're so early in the season. People are talking about Amarim's future. People are saying that Brendan Rodgers, even after going out of their Champions League qualifier, is under pressure, despite the fact that he's had a history in 2 spells of winning silverware. But Russell Martin's very different, I think, because it's not only not gone according to plan, but there's no suggestion of positives from the manner in which they went out in that 2-legged game against Club Brugge. And it's been a very poor start to the SPL season as well. So I like Russell Martin. His brand of football is excellent. Usually when he's given time, he gets the best out of his players. But as you say, this fan base are not going to tolerate it if they're humbled in an Old Firm derby as well. So I think his future is going to be one to watch. Usually clubs like to give managers until the festive period. Let's just see how patient Rangers are.
And just quickly before we move on, Jamie Vardy obviously available on a free for any club. If I was him, I think I'd just go off to America though, surely now.
Yeah, I was always told that Vardy would be open to MLS, but it's about what's right for his family and location.
Yeah,
so
true.
Vardy used to have a sort of controlling stake in a franchise called Rochester in America, and that's kind of in Greater New York. And I think if Vardy was offered New York or LA, then absolutely he might consider MLS. But the link with MLS, I'm told, even though nobody's got his discovery rights at the moment, is actually Charlotte. And part of the reason for that is because Dean Smith is the manager and his number 2 is Vardy's former teammate, Christian Fuchs. So they like the idea of bringing Vardy over. They actually tried for Jamie Vardy a year ago, and Vardy obviously at that point said, no, I'm going to extend at Leicester and play another season in the Premier League. And all indications were with Vardy that after he left Leicester, he thought he would get a Premier League opportunity. And now you've got clubs scrambling for strikers in the final days of the window. Surely it couldn't be Newcastle. Brentford was the club that I heard, but it's not really their model to kind of buy older. But if Wissa really wants to leave and they can't find another option, that could be one to keep an eye on as well. And then I think there's interest from Vardy in Saudi Arabia and Turkey. And he's also got an option, I'm told, in Italy as well. So I think Vardy will find a club. But remember one really important thing, and that's that a free agent does not have to move by 7 p.m. on the 1st of September. So if you're Vardy, you may say, let's let everyone get into their drama. Let's see who's left without after the window shuts. And then at that point, only free agents can be signed, and maybe Vardy will have a bit more leverage to get what I think in an ideal world for him would be a Premier League move.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, we've covered so much so far on this episode of Market Madness. We've got one more thing to come. This is Market Madness from GiveMeSport. And that final thing is, earlier we set Ben the question. I actually answered it, probably not very well. Will Tottenham beat Chelsea in the race for Xavi Simons? I've seen a lot of people in the comments asking, they want an update, Ben. They're very interested to hear where Xavi Simons is going to go. Are Tottenham gonna hijack this move?
Yeah, I actually think this is really sensitive for a few reasons. So my understanding is that Xavi Simons, with Leipzig's authorization, has been allowed to travel to London, not specifically Chelsea or Spurs, but London, to try and resolve his future in 48 hours. And if he can't, he'll be back to Leipzig, and very possibly they'll include him in the matchday squad this weekend. So today, tomorrow are the really key days. And it is true that Tottenham have come to the table and Spurs are in club-to-club talks. I'm getting the notion, even though, of course, we respect other reporting, of a formal bid by Tottenham denied at this point. But there have been verbal talks. And of course, this late in the window, there isn't much difference between talking numbers verbally and bidding, because it all has to happen very quickly. So Tottenham are there, but Xavi Simons' long-standing preference has always been Chelsea. And crucially, Chelsea are still there as well. So it's reminding me a little bit of the Benjamin Sesko situation. Chelsea have worked the player side. They've already agreed terms. They think they've got buy-in, but they don't have a club-to-club agreement. Tottenham have gone straight to the club-to-club side. They think Xavi Simons is open, but they haven't agreed personal terms yet. And if Chelsea move and agree a club-to-club fee, regardless of what Tottenham do, Chelsea are the big favourites for Xavi Simons. But clearly Tottenham's tactic, if they choose to move, will be to say, maybe Chelsea need another outgoing. Maybe Chelsea don't meet Leipzig's valuation, because Leipzig wants 65 million euros plus. Yeah. And Chelsea have spoken of an agreement more around the 55 and 60 million euros. So Tottenham, if they are to win this race, are going to need two things. One, a quick agreement with Leipzig, and two, to hope Chelsea back off. If we get a situation where both Chelsea and Spurs have club-to-club agreements with Leipzig, my understanding remains that Xavi Simons will pick Chelsea. So Tottenham are going to be hoping this is an Eberechi Eze 2.0. And if that's to be the case, then first of all, they need to work on Xavi Simons face-to-face whilst he's in London. And second of all, they need to go fast in the hope that maybe Chelsea back off. And then there is a realistic possibility that he ends up a Tottenham player. So this is really going to be fascinating, and I expect it to resolve itself in the next 48 hours.
Ooh, I don't know if that's what Tottenham fans wanted to hear, if Chelsea fans wanted to hear. I'm not sure. I don't know where Xavi Simons is going to end up. Ben, just before we go, I think it is worth mentioning the Champions League draw, which I think is 8 minutes to go until the first ball is drawn. But the biggest talking point here is that Chelsea have won another trophy. We have been given an award by UEFA for winning every single. We've just basically been given a trophy for winning it all, and I absolutely love it.
So this was the beginning of the ceremony, and Chelsea's COO and president, Jason Gannon, was up on the stage with Alexander Ceferin, the UEFA president. And as you say, Chelsea were given an award because they won the UEFA Conference League. And then in addition to that, that completed their trophy cabinet of all UEFA domestic club competitions. And I suppose technically, even though it's FIFA endorsed, you can add the new expanded Club World Cup, and they'd already won the old one of that as well. So they've been given kind of like a plaque, which from what I've seen on the feed is kind of a white square plaque with different sort of sketched, slightly transparent Chelsea captains lifting each of the trophies, and then the Chelsea logo and the UEFA logo. So whether or not they put that in the trophy cabinet or whether you hang that in the boardroom, I'm inclined to think the latter. And Chelsea's COO and president, Jason Gannon, spoke on stage, and he said this, which you can react to, Liv. On behalf of 120 years of history at Chelsea, we thank you as a club. I'd say this validates the success of our young squad and project in a European campaign last season. And it's such a special moment for our young squad, as well as being the youngest squad in Premier League history to also qualify for the Champions League.
Oh, it's great, isn't it? We've won it all. We've got another trophy. And yeah, this Chelsea project, I definitely think it's heading in the right direction. And I'm very, very excited about this season. And I'm excited to find out who Chelsea get in the Champions League. I'm going to plan my flights and see where I'm going to end up. In probably a square in Madrid, because we always play Madrid. That was just always on.
Well, let me just give you a little bit of context, because I know we've got a little bit of time here, and we will also talk, I believe, FPL as well just before we go. But for those of you that want to tune into the draw, you can go over to the UEFA website, and obviously it's streamed on various broadcasters as well. There are 4 pots, and there are 6 English teams in the draw. So Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, pot 1, Arsenal, pot 2, Spurs, pot 3, Newcastle, pot 4. It's done on coefficients. That's how it's ranked. And then the wrinkle to all of this is you get 8 fixtures, 4 at home, 4 away. You don't play any team twice, like the old group stage, and no team from the same country can face each other. So to give you an example, for Chelsea, City and Liverpool, they will each get 2 fixtures, 1 home, 1 away from pot 1. And because there are 3 English teams in pot 1, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City can only face 2 of PSG, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Inter, Dortmund or Barcelona. So that is an incredible chance of not 1 but 2. I mean, there's no bad fixture there. There's no small fixture there. Basically, these English teams are going to have to play the defending champions PSG or Real Madrid statistically.
Give me both of them or beat them both. And I'm very, very excited. And if you don't have time to watch the Champions League draw, don't worry, because it will all be on the GiveMeSport website once it has been completed and done. A little FPL update, because last time out, if you were here, if you were watching, if you were listening, incredibly, our very own reporter, Paul Gilmore, was top of the GiveMeSport FPL League, which thousands upon thousands of you have been joining us for. We also still want plenty more of you to get involved as well. You can scan that QR code on your screen, or you can use the code. It's VNNP75. VNNP75. See if you can beat me. You probably will, because I've had a disastrous start.
I had a dreadful week last week.
Over it already.
Like Captain Cole Palmer, and he was injured, and then it went to Mateus Cunha, and Manchester United didn't do anything.
Yeah, I was annoyed at Palmer because I actually thought he was I thought he would have scored 5 against West Ham. They were that bad. And mine went to Salah, who obviously got the assist in the last second. But I'm thinking my captain Mateus Cunha this weekend, they might take a punt on Man United. I don't know why. Paul has now dropped down to 13th, by the way. Unlucky Paul. He's 20 points behind Costa Julio's Tzatziki tactician. Cool, that's a mouthful, isn't it? Jesus. Who were helped largely by captain Victor Gyökeres. He got 36 points.
Oh, wow.
Captaincy, obviously 18 if you didn't captain him. But yeah, Costa got 77-point game week. 77 points. I think I got about 40 or 50.
Yeah, I didn't get about 45.
Yeah, we go again, Ben. But congratulations to you, Costa, who, 77 points. Pretty good. Right. That brings an end to this week's show. Ben, thank you so much. As always, you have been great. Remember, the transfer window closes at the earlier time of 7 o'clock in the evenings. That's 7 p.m. UK time this coming Monday, the 1st of September. Don't worry, because we will be back with not 1, but 2 shows for you on deadline day, starting off at 12 p.m. Yeah, that's lunchtime at UK time, so do keep an eye out for that in all your usual places. Until then, you can listen back on your podcast app of choice. Just search for Market Madness. For more info on any of the stories we've discussed and so much more, you can head to GiveMeSport.com. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.